Hello, everybody. Jason of New Age Revolution Cave, and it is a glorious Saturday evening. It is 8:30. I am currently in the middle of filming Nup All Night, and I thought, I didn't do a Friday video, or I didn't do a Saturday video. So here we go. Here's the Saturday video. It's a Hey Do You Remember? Now, last couple of Hey Do You Remembers. I mentioned the divorce of the parents and spending weekends with my dad. And so it got me thinking, obviously, about the movies and the Blockbuster and the pizza and things like that. But also something else that I don't know how common it is today. But when we went to see my dad, when he picked us up and had us, Friday to Sunday, there was a pretty good chance that we were going to go visit family. That's right. Hey, do you remember going to visit family, going to family's houses to visit them so that your parents could visit? So this is, again, I don't know if this is a lost art or not. I can't compare. I can't use my family as, the sample. Because we don't really have a lot of family. I don't see my family a lot, and the children's mother doesn't speak to her family. So we don't go anywhere. The children used to visit their grandmother on their mother's side, and their aunt lived there. Their aunt has never left the house in the history of her life, and so she lives with the mother. And so we'd go there. They'd visit. We would visit them, but it's not the same. My children now visit my father, their grandfather, and his wife. Their nana, and but that's it. That's about it. That's about it. My kids have a couple of aunts, but they don't see them. The one aunt on the other side, the in-law side, they've seen, but we don't talk to them anymore, thankfully. So they don't see them. So we don't do that. But when I was a kid, I think I burned my wrist on the hot oil. Definitely think I did that. But anyway, so when I was a kid, so my dad had a pretty big family. He had his mother and stepfather, and they lived in a house. And he had many, many aunts and uncles and cousins. My dad's grandmother had like 19 children, for real. And those children had children and tons of. So I have so many aunts and uncles and cousins on my dad's side that I've probably never even met. But when I was a kid, to fill time with us, my dad would take us visiting. And we would always go to a couple aunts and uncles in particular. And we would go see his mother, my grandmother on my dad's side. And we would visit family. And as kids, all I remember is that nothing of this visit took place in any other room but where? The kitchen. It's almost like so a couple of aunts and uncles in particular, and my dad's mother, it's almost like they didn't have other rooms of their house. I mean, we explored them as kids, but it's almost like they didn't use any other rooms of their house, because when you visited family, everybody met in the kitchen. And what did they have in the kitchen? They had coffee. And what did they have with their coffee? They had Danishes. And what did they have with their coffee and Danish? They had conversation. That's right. So my dad would sit around a kitchen table, drinking coffee, eating a Danish, and talking with his aunts and uncles, my great aunt and uncles, and me and my two sisters would just wander around. Of course, they immediately would offer us something to eat or drink. And of course, we would always take them up on it. But, our eating and drinking consisted of, some Kool-Aid and, 37 seconds. And we're bored out of our minds. And so we're wandering around these aunts and uncles' houses, exploring their stuff, while my dad sits in the kitchen and talks. And there was never anything to do at these aunts and uncles' houses. There was never anything fun. There were no toys. We would just look at all their knickknacks and all their weird old people furniture. And, the TVs weren't even on. Like you didn't just go over there and sit down and start watching TV. It's almost like some of these people didn't even have televisions, I bet. They didn't. It was just so weird to go visit and have absolutely nothing to do. Now, my one in particular aunt and uncle, my Uncle Dan and my Aunt Kathy, they had 4 kids. And they were all older than us, significantly older than us. But when we would go there, my mom and dad, I remember, or my dad or just whoever, would hang out in the kitchen, talk to my aunt and uncle. And that house, we did have something to do because they had 4 kids. So we'd play Atari. That's where I discovered the Atari for the first time, at my Uncle Dan and Aunt Kathy's house with my 4 cousins. Now, again, the cousins were older, so they didn't want much to do with us. They were off doing their own thing. And sometimes my sisters and I would go explore their bedrooms. And that was always risky. You don't want to do that. And we'd run around outside, we'd go outside and play in my aunt and uncle's backyard. Hope that maybe a kid comes out. I don't know. It's just very, very bizarre that was a staple of my dad's time with us, was visiting. Now, when we went to his mother's house, my grandmother, again, on my dad's side, I've talked about my grandma on my mom's side. That's where I lived. But when we visited my dad's mother, kind of a similar situation. I don't think that my grandma ever left the kitchen table. I don't remember ever in my life, folks, in my entire life, I don't remember my dad's mother ever sitting on a couch. I have seen her in her bed, and I have seen her at the kitchen table. That's it. And the only reason I saw her in her bed is because we would sleep over sometimes. I never saw her in the living room on a couch with a remote in her hand watching television. That was never, ever a thing. She sat at the kitchen table and probably had 400 cups of coffee from morning till night, right? These are nighttime coffee drinkers back in the 80s, folks. It's 10 o'clock at night. I just put the coffee on. You want some? Yeah, I'll take a cup of coffee. Okay, give me a minute. I'll get you coffee. Nighttime coffee drinkers, 600-700 cigarettes she would consume, and that's what she did. And there was always a tub of chocolate cake on the table. And of course, I was offered a slice every 37 seconds. I already had one. Thank you very much. But that house was a little, because my sisters and I would somehow discover the television, turn it on. We'd watch TV there. We'd run around out back. They had a cool garage with an attic kind of above the garage. We'd go hang out up there. We'd make a fort. And the interesting thing about this house was that my aunt, my dad's sister, lived upstairs. It was a duplex. So my dad's sister lived upstairs, and she was a nurse, and she worked all day. So my sisters and I would go up in her apartment, and then it was like a free-for-all. But she had a cat, and it was quite an evil cat. I'm sorry, Stephen Brown, but it was an evil cat. And so you didn't really want to be up there because the cat would eat you. But we'd go play in her apartment and then come down and see my grandma. But again, that doesn't happen today. My kids don't have, so I have a brother, I have a half brother from my mom's second marriage. He just recently moved to Tennessee, but my kids were never close with him. So my kids don't have an uncle. I mean, they do. I don't think he's ever going to see this, but they have an uncle by, origin, but they don't have an uncle. They have aunts, but they don't because they don't see them. And there's no cousins. I mean, my sisters have kids, but they're grown. My youngest sister has, I think her son is 6 or 7. I don't know, 8 maybe. My kids have never met him. So my kids don't have aunts, uncles, or cousins. And they have my dad, they have my dad's wife, and that's it. So my kids are going without, the family experience of the 80s, but that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, and some of these aunts and uncles that my dad would take us to, they were distant, and I don't mean like distant as in like third aunt or third uncle. That's like the only time I ever saw them was when my dad took me over there, and I might never see them again. It was like my dad just got some crazy idea to go visit his Uncle John, and Aunt Lorraine or whatever. And hi guys, hey, oh look at you kids, oh it's been so long. Well, guess what? We're never going to see you again because this is our one visit. I don't know when we're coming back. Visiting family, folks. Whatever happened? No, not whatever happened. That's an old show. Hey, do you remember visiting family in the 80s? Tell me about your cousins. Tell me about your aunts and uncles. Were you close to them? Did you have fun times with your cousins? Did you grow up with them like best friends? Did you have a cool uncle? Did you see my like I said, my aunts and uncles were second, like great aunt and great uncle, because my dad had so many aunts and uncles that they were my great aunt, my great uncle, even when I was like 8. And so I have tons of second cousins, all my dad's first cousins. Not close with any of them today. Don't talk to any of them today except at funerals. You know how that goes. All right, that is all. Visiting family, whatever happened to it. Hey, do you remember? Whichever we're doing, I don't know. Tell me your story below. Let's continue on with Nup All Night. Good night now.